Well, thank you, Gene, and good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here. What I'd like to talk about today is the future of our country, and particularly our transportation needs and how it affects our economy. Recently, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce stated that supporting a 21st century economy will require America to target high levels of investment in improving performance across all transportation modes. And they went on to say, this is a direct quote from the Chamber, there can be no more business as usual. You see, business as usual won't help us win the future. And as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce recognizes, and as President Obama continues to emphasize, transportation is, and always has been, the bloodline of our economy. No economy can ever grow any faster than its transportation network can carry it. But today, our transportation network is saddled with gridlock, and it's heavily reliant on foreign oil. And perhaps that's why so many Americans, more than 19 out of 20 according to one study, are concerned about the state of our country's transportation infrastructure. They realize that if we're serious about things like growing our economy, improving our transportation infrastructure, and kicking our addiction to foreign oil, to do this, business as usual won't help us. So while we must continue to expand domestic production of oil, right now, our country is producing more oil than at any time in the past 8 years. And the fact is that America uses 20% of the world's oil when we have only 2% of the world's known oil reserves. So even if we drilled everywhere domestically, we'd still be relying on other countries to supply our oil. And so that's why the President's, what we call all of the above strategy for energy production also includes expanding drilling domestically, but it also means increasing our supply of biofuels, investing in greener forms of transportation, and this means more fuel-efficient cars, more solar power, more wind power, and it means more rail. As part of a balanced transportation network, rail offers the opportunity for sustainable growth. With service levels that are targeted for the marketplace, rail can be the most cost-effective, least oil-resistant, and most environmentally friendly mode of transportation. One dedicated high-speed rail line offers more capacity than a 6-lane highway. Passenger rail is 3 times more energy efficient than auto travel and 6 times more energy efficient than flying. And meanwhile, our highways are struggling both with congestion and, in many cases, running out of room to grow. There's a study by the Texas Transportation Institute that has identified 328 seriously congested highway corridors, 328 stretches of highway that every day, at increasingly frequency and increasingly unpredictable times, are experiencing hours of traffic jams and stop-and-go traffic. And these costs are costs to our economy. And it costs us nearly $130 billion a year. This has shot up 500% since the early 1980s. So while the interstate highway system unlocked our economic potential in the 20th century, it's become clear that with 100 million more Americans predicted to call America home by the year 2050, our economic competitiveness in the 21st century will require having our highways, airports, railways, and public transit systems to work together seamlessly to move people and goods faster and more efficiently than ever before. Now, the President has articulated a vision where 80% of Americans have access to an interconnected series of regional networks offering high-speed and modernized intercity passenger rail service in the next 25 years. Nationwide, FRA has 32 state partners that realize investing in passenger rail can ensure jobs today, build a stronger economy tomorrow, and provide a more balanced transportation system that's better for consumers and the environment. And let me tell you, clearly, there's a huge demand. At FRA, since making $10.1 billion available through our high-speed and intercity passenger rail program, we've received more than 500 applications from states requesting $75 billion for projects for passenger rail. In this year, states have submitted applications totaling $1 billion for funding for only a $100 million pot that we're making available through our TIGER program. So I think this goes to show that these aren't our plans at FRA. They're the state's plans. For too many years, governors, mayors, state officials, and local leaders have known the need to give citizens a faster, more reliable alternative to highway gridlock and overcrowded airports, and all they lacked was a federal funding partner. These local officials know that every dollar you spend on rail infrastructure generates 3 times more in economic output and job creation. And while these projects don't get finished overnight, the economic benefits often arrive before initial rail construction even takes place. And this includes a rise in land values and wages. It includes new growth, new jobs, and a huge windfall for local economies. I'll give you a couple of examples. Great example, Brunswick, Maine. This fall, our state partners up in Maine will finish extending Amtrak's Downeaster service up to Brunswick. But the development and the investment has already arrived. This town of 20,000 people now has new condos, new retail shops, restaurants, and a hotel surrounding the site of the proposed new train station. By the year 2030, it's been projected that more than $7 billion worth of new development along the Downeaster corridor will create 10,000 new jobs and $75 million in annual tax revenues. Another great example, Normal, Illinois, town of 50,000 residents. Due to the planned improved service on the Chicago-St. Louis corridor, some $200 million of private investment has already started flowing into their central business district. Now their Marriott Hotels Conference Center is becoming a premier venue in central Illinois for meetings. Visitors today find new retail shops and restaurants in a vibrant central business district that's 100% occupied. The Midwest states, the 9 Midwest states, have planned to connect the Midwest's 40 largest cities with a comprehensive rail network that features 110-mile-per-hour service, and they're seeing success. Earlier this year, Michigan introduced America's fastest trains outside the Northeast corridor with 110-mile-per-hour service on a 90-mile stretch from Porter, Indiana to Kalamazoo, Michigan. By the year 2050, nearly 75% of the Chicago-St. Louis route and nearly 80% of the Chicago-Detroit route will see sustained speeds of 110 miles per hour. And that includes new high-performing locomotives, new coaches, new equipment, and trip times at full build-out that are going to be close to 3.5 to 3 hours, 45 minutes. Competitive with air, superior to the auto, and allowing travelers to be productive. Going back to that presentation earlier, checking emails, billable hours, you gotta love it. Or just the ability to relax while speeding past the cars on the interstate. But let me tell you something, even modest investments can make a difference. And let's talk about what's happening right here in Missouri. During the first 10 months of 2008, the on-time performance of Amtrak's River Runner, which serves the Kansas City-St. Louis market, averaged 64% on-time performance due to congestion along that route. But after a study determined that much of the delay was linked to the lack of passing sidings, a single-track section west of Jefferson City, those sidings were added through a federal-state partnership. In 2009, the River Runner's on-time performance quickly improved to almost 90%. And just as quickly, the ridership followed with a near 15% increase in ridership. And just last week, Missouri DOT, with a $22 million grant from our high-speed and intercity passenger rail program, MDOT broke ground on improvements to the Osage River Bridge, a long-time choke point for more than 60 trains that pass through that area each day. The new bridge will speed up travel times for some 600 Amtrak riders between St. Louis and Kansas City, creating faster and even more convenient connections for them. But there's benefits in the freight industry. It'll help you bring raw material and other finished products to market more efficiently, boosting Missouri's economic competitiveness for farmers, manufacturers, and businesses. And all of this didn't just magically materialize. It became a reality after each of these states laid a foundation, a solid foundation, for success through good planning and analysis. And so that's why I'm so pleased, and I commend the planning work currently taking place in Kansas, in Oklahoma, in Texas. These states are laying the groundwork for passenger rail in a way that makes sense for them. And they're going about it the right way, with the understanding that strong long-term planning leads to the creation of market-driven rail plans that benefits communities throughout the region. Texas is set to kick off this month a planning study for a rail network that will connect Oklahoma City down through the Texas Triangle. And just think about the powerful effect that transportation system is going to have on a state that's not only the fastest growing in the nation, but has more citizens commuting exceptionally long distances. Rising fuel prices and urban congestion have people thinking differently about how they travel. The 10.4 billion trips that Americans took using public transportation last year was the most since 1957. Think about that. Public transit saw its highest ridership last year since 1957, since the year I was born. From 1995 to 2008, ridership on commuter rail, light rail, and intercity passenger rail grew 72%. Last year, Amtrak carried more than 30 million passengers, setting its 8th ridership record in the past 9 years. And in the past decade, ridership's up some 43%. And a great example of what can happen in corridor service, this statistic on Chicago-St. Louis is astounding. The ridership's up 212% in the past 5-year period. People are looking for transportation choices. They're looking for options to get away from ever escalating fuel costs. And this all brings us back to where I opened, that there can be no more business as usual. We have to continue to evolve, to adapt, just as we have as a country so many times in our past. In 1919, it took Dwight D. Eisenhower, then a major in the U.S. Army, 62 days to travel by road from Washington, D.C. to San Francisco. Think about that. And so when Eisenhower became president, he set a goal to build a network of roads that would bring our cities and towns closer together, catalyze industry, and power the strongest economy the world has ever seen. It took 10 administrations, 28 sessions of Congress to build out the interstate system. But incrementally, step by step, we got it done. Through the boom years, through the bust years, through 8 recessions, we built the best national highway system in the world. Well, today, there are 32 states that are in phase 1 of the most important multi-generational transportation project since the interstate highway system. Years from now, the next generation, no doubt, will look back at the choices that we made today. They'll see that we knew of the threats of climate change. We were aware of the crushing effects of rising fuel prices and our dependence on foreign oil. They'll see that we knew of the coming population growth and of the debilitating effects and costs of congestion. And so when they look at the choices we made, with the knowledge that we had, will they see that we got it right, like Eisenhower did? Well, with the commitment of President Obama and this administration, and with the efforts of all of you and visionary state leaders, I'm convinced the answer to that question will be yes. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.